would like to introduce you to the eminent speakers for morning session, Mr. Himanshu Tambe. Mr. Himanshu Tambe is Managing Director and Global Leader of Accenture Capabilities Network, Talent and Organization. With over 25 years of experience in human resource, Himanshu Tambe is unequivocally a maestro in the field of HR. He was earlier associated with Arthur D. Little, Cosmode Consultancies Private Limited, and Eicher Motors. He completed his Masters of Business Administration from National University of Singapore. Prior to that, he completed his BE from BIT. He has also volunteered in several initiatives, out of which one of them was Strategies for National Training Conveyor. Now, I would like Professor Vidyadhar Reddy to greet Mr. Himanshu Tambe. No, that's later. Yeah. Now, we have the second speaker of today, Mr. B.K. Mishra. Mr. B.K. Mishra is the Senior Vice President of Global Delivery Head at Tech Mahindra. He completed his MTech from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. Prior to that, he completed his BE in Electrical Engineering from Sambhalpur University. He has volunteered for several corporate initiatives that were organized by Tech Mahindra. With more than 25 years of experience in the arena of operations, Mr. B.K. Mishra is admitted us to contribute on the topic of how AI and digitization are transforming HR and recruitment. I would like Mr. Professor Vidyadhar Reddy to greet Mr. B.K. Mishra. And welcome, sir. The third speaker for today is Ms. Tanuja Aburi. She is Senior Director HR at NTT Data. Prior to that, she worked as Vice President for Bank of America. She was also advisor for People Matters. She completed her executive post-graduation from Cornell University with over 18 years of experience in IT industry. Ms. Tanuja worked extensively in HR strategy, leadership, and change management. She has been change agent in several instances and has brought a revolutionary difference to the processes and system. I would like Mr. Professor Swati Mathur to greet Mr. Tanuja Aburi. And please welcome to the dais, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah. 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 The fourth speaker for today is Ms. Rupali Daundial, is the Head of Learning and Development at Novartis. Prior to that, she has worked as AVP Organizational Effectiveness India at Franklin Templeton. With Masters in French, MBA from Indian School of Business, and dual major in Strategy and Leader and Strategic Marketing, she has been diverse experience of working with cross-culture teams in areas of training and leadership development. Her primary area of expertise are organizational behavior, design consulting, talent management process, training design delivery, competency advisory, global process transactions. I would like Mr. Professor Rahul to greet Mr. Rupali Daundial. Please welcome to the dais, ma'am. Yeah. So stupid. Okay. All right. I would like to invite the keynote speaker of the session, Mr. Himanshu Tambe, on the dais, and he would take up the session from now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put up with that.
Nice. Thank you. Right. Okay. Very good. I feel very constrained if I have to stand behind a podium, so if you don't mind, I'll walk around. Is my voice carrying it back? It does? Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning. Morning. And indeed a privilege to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Sati, thank you for warm words of introduction. I'm very pleased to meet my fellow panelists. It's really nice. So, okay, well, now I won't have to shout. Wonderful. Thank you. So look, I think Professor Mustafa in the morning and then Professor Reddy kind of set the context quite well to say that they stressed artificial intelligence as the topic and as what is changing. But honestly, I think artificial intelligence is just one of the technologies that is changing the world. And so in the brief time that I have, maybe I'll take about 20 minutes or so. And then my fellow panelists will also take another 15, 20 minutes each. And then we'll run a sort of a panel discussion, yeah, in which I hope that you folks will ask a lot of questions and we can interact. I have 3 messages for you. And before I get into my presentation, let me tell you what those 3 messages are. Message number 1 is, I think, like the first industrial revolution and the second industrial revolution, we are in the verge of an industrial revolution. We are all fortunate to actually witness it. So it is not a minor change. We are actually seeing a paradigm shift happening in front of our eyes. And when that happens, the ways of working change. And so if you want to understand the future of HR, which is what today's session is all about, I think you have to begin by understanding the future of work. And in that context, understand the future of HR. It's not HR for HR's sake. It is HR to be able to support businesses to do better. So first, that's the first point. The second point is, as a result of that, workforces are going to have to dramatically shift, whether it's in terms of skills, whether it's in terms of culture, whether it's in terms of way you organize, whether it's in terms of the type of leaders that you need in the future. It's going to have to dramatically shift. And when business leaders and CEOs turn around to say, who's going to do that for me? They look at HR as the custodians of the workforce, of having to make that shift. So whatever is the future of HR has to be in the context of that scenario. And it's very easy to get carried away by all the new technologies and artificial intelligence and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it is about helping the workforce make the transition so that they can cope with the shifting ways of working. Yeah? And I think that's the big message that I want to leave with you. And I want to do this by sort of illustrating it with 2 industries, right? The manufacturing industry, automobile manufacturing. All of you have heard about the autonomous cars. It's not a dream anymore. I actually am seeing trials myself of autonomous cars going on in Singapore, on the roads of Singapore. So it's not something that's happening in the valley. It's already come to Asia. The connected car, you heard about the concept of the connected car, where the car is just one piece of a larger platform, and you can switch on and put on your microwave and put it off from the car. And you can order the milk, and the milk reaches your fridge by the time you get home on your way from the office. That's also a reality, by the way. So the connected car, the autonomous car, these are all realities. In the back end, in the manufacturing environment of the automobile industry, the amount of robotics that is being used is not funny anymore. Actually, teams, cobots as they call them, robots who work with men are called cobots nowadays. They have names, by the way. I've been to plants, my clients in Thailand, where robots work with men and they have names like Johnny and Rahul and so on and so forth, and they join in the morning team meetings. You know how they have team meetings in the morning before manufacturing starts? Robots join those meetings. So it's become as real as that. Now, in the context of that, what are workers supposed to do? How are workers supposed to change? What is the skills that they are expected to have that they didn't have in the past? If you think about that, it's your ability to read data, it's your ability to understand analytics, it's your ability to make sense from all of that. And it's today the hard, difficult welding that workers used to do, they don't do anymore. The robots do it. So what do then? They do the even harder welds. So that means they are moving from just being mechanical sort of transactional workers to almost becoming artists in a way. So just understand, work is changing and workforce is changing, right? I'll give you one more example and then we'll move on. Retail, diametrically opposite. This is Christmas season, big shopping season in the US. Amazon is deploying robots in their warehouses. So there are no more men in their warehouses to go and pick up stuff from the shelves. Robots or cobots or whatever you call are doing that, right? In Macy's in New York, I've seen it with my own eyes. If you go take some clothes and go into the changing room to change and you want to exchange those clothes, you don't have to walk out again. You don't have to call a attendant anymore. You have a touch screen over there and you can say, I want this trouser of this size, of this design. It comes and is delivered to you through a chute inside the changing room. So what is that retail assistant supposed to do? How does his work change now? Because till yesterday he or she used to come and give you those clothes, right? So what does he or she do now? How is that person's work changing? Becoming an advisor. Almost becoming like a fashion consultant, a beauty consultant, as opposed to being a transactional person who took out things from the shelves and gave it to you. So I've given you an example from manufacturing, I've given you an example from retail. Mishra ji will give you an example of what's happening in operations, in services industry. Pharma is also undergoing massive changes. Rupali can talk to you about that. You know, so as HR professionals, as aspiring as HR professionals, and a lot of you over here probably are, try to root yourself in how work is changing and therefore how the workers are changing and the workforce is changing. Okay? And then everything becomes very different and very real. So this is what I was saying earlier. The first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution was triggered by what? By the steam engine. And what happened as a result? What happened as a result? The dirty, the dangerous, the hazardous work was taken away by the machines. Then came the telecom revolution, the semiconductor revolution, the communications revolution. And what happened? The repetitive work, the transactional work went away. And organizations like Tech Mahindra and organizations like Infosys, Wipro, my organization, Accenture, we all benefited from that. Now what's happening? You're moving into the so-called digital age where a lot of these technologies are coming together, by the way. AI, IoT, robotics, analytics, they're all happening at the same time. Meanwhile, biomedical and medical sciences is changing dramatically. All of that is coming together and what's called combinatorial effects are happening. So when 1 + 1 come together and how they become 101, that kind of thing is happening with technologies. Technologies from very different parts are coming together and it's exploding and creating new possibilities. And what is going to happen as a result is decision making is going to get taken away. I think Professor Mustafa was making allusions to that, about what kind of decision making will be taken away. And so we got to get used to the idea that we are getting into this fourth industrial revolution where you're going to see very dramatic, different ways of things happening, and as a result, what's happening to the workforce, as I illustrated with 2 examples. I've got many more examples here, but call center workers, right? The call center worker of tomorrow is going to have to become an advisor, not just a person who takes a call and gives you information. The manager of tomorrow doesn't have to do any coordination. I've been working with a pharma company where the role of the sales medical representative, the frontline medical representative, is now entirely done All his information is on his phone. He knows which doctor to go to what medicine to push, and when, and where not to go to. So what is the role of the sales manager then? Do we need a sales manager? This pharma company is asking us the question, do I even need a sales manager anymore? So that's how the role of the manager is changing. Mining, telecom technicians, they're no longer in the front line doing work because autonomous vehicles are doing the work. They're sitting in control rooms. So what kind of skills do they need? Retail, I was talking about what's happening in Amazon, so on and so forth, right? So now let's come to what happens to HR as a result of all this. Pre-Industry 4.0, work was a discrete set of activities, yeah? And even if HR did not understand the work, it did not matter because they could treat people as digits. And you could just do the performance management for them, you could do the learning for them, you could do whatever for them. In the new world, work and workforce are getting so tightly combined and integrated that HR has to understand work very well. And in the word that I use often is HR has to become what's called an workforce augmentation engineer. So even HR is in engineering business, except that they're engineering different things. They're engineering the right combination of man and machine, what Professor Mustafa was saying. How do you do that? Yeah? And so, the framework that I will offer you folks to think about is to think in terms of work, workforce, and HR. How is work changing? Work is changing because of human-machine collaboration. We took some examples of that. Work is changing because of the use of analytics. I was giving you an example of how use of analytics is changing the role of the salesperson in the front line. Another example of how analytics is changing work is in immigration. I'm going to take a completely different example from government, where I do a lot of my work. You know, you fill up a form, right, before you board an aircraft. Where do you think that information goes? What do you think happens with that information? It's called advanced passenger information. That's going into some machine somewhere where someone is running analytics, and when you land, by the time you land, they've already said, Mr. Prasad is a safe person, no need to check him, he can walk through. So he doesn't have to go through a manual counter, he can go through a machine-readable counter, he can pass through. That's happening in Australia already. So, all kinds of industries, work is changing. Therefore, how work is organized is changing. No longer do you need permanent workforces to do things. What is Uber? Why can't you apply the principles of Uber to your workforce, to the way you organize? I'm sure, maybe Mishaji, you already have examples of how it's being done in Tech Mahindra. We are doing it already. We don't have permanent workforces for everything. We have what we call Uberized workforces or liquid workforces, new ways of organizing. So therefore, if how work is changing is being performed is changing, how work is organized will change. If that happens, who performs the work will change. And I think Rupali, I'll leave it to Rupali later on to tell us how learning is changing as a result of it. The use of virtual reality, use of gamification, use of various different other techniques to change even the way people learn. The whole concept of today, there is so much of content available out there, you don't need to create content anymore. You need to curate content. Actually, we have a problem of plenty. We have a problem of too much. So somebody needs to go and curate that stuff and make it sensible. So that's the other thing. Leadership is going to change. Because you don't need the sales manager anymore, as I was saying earlier. You need managers who are very comfortable with what's called edge-centric decision making. So managers who are comfortable to delegate authority right up to the front line. I was in China, I just came back from Hong Kong last night. I was working with a telecom manufacturer, smart handphone set manufacturer in China, highly centralized, like any other Chinese culture, right? Extremely centralized company. But because of these things, now they have to let go of authority. And they're finding the transition extremely difficult. So organizations are going through a form of catharsis almost, when they have to decentralize this kind of authority up down to the front line. And then the final part, and I'm going to leave it there, which is Why people come to work is also changing, by the way. People don't come to work for salaries anymore, by and large. At least not in the millennial generation. And a lot of you are shaking your heads, so the students over here, you're shaking your heads, which means you agree. You come to work for what? What do you come to work for? Sorry? Wow. What do you mean by that? Say more. A purpose. Yeah. Yeah. There you said it. Thank you. So it's nothing about all these overgeneralizations that people make that millennials are, they don't want to stay in a company, they are disloyal, they move around. I think it's an overgeneralization. I think it's based on a very limited understanding of what people actually want, what the millennials want. They want that, what you said. They want purpose, they want meaning. They want to know how they fit into the overall picture. And once you do that, you can actually get stickiness. I have seen industries where the industry norm is 33% attrition, they are running at 8%. How do they do it? They must be doing something different. And they use the millennial workforce, right? The average age in that company is 26. So they're obviously doing something different. So I keep saying this, employee engagement is dead, employee experience is in. The concept of employee engagement is finished. I think those days are gone. First it was employee satisfaction, then we moved to employee engagement. I think we are moving from there to employee experience. So if you can provide your employees the same experience that they get from a Citibank, or then they can get from a Taj Hotels, why should the onboarding experience be any different from a hotel check-in experience? Why? Why can't it be similar? This was actually the challenge a client gave me once. He said, please design an onboarding experience that looks like the Taj check-in. And that's where organizations are moving, to provide experience to their employees. And that's how the entire value proposition that you offer to employees to attract them and to retain them is changing. Okay? So I can go on and on, but I'm going to shut up now, because I think I've taken more than enough time. But think about it like this. How is work changing? Therefore, how is the workforce changing? And therefore, what does HR need to do? Please don't start the other way around and say, what does HR need to do? Because it's like a little bit in the fluff. Okay? So in summary, every business is a digital business, okay? Every business. I'm working in Hong Kong with an organization that does company secretarial transactional work. You know how company secretarial people have to do a lot of paperwork in the background? So they're in the business of doing that transactional work. Even they think that they are a digital business. Can you believe it? So every business is becoming a digital business. I said this earlier. Companies need to pivot their workforce. You literally need to rotate your workforce into a different type of skill set. In order to do that, HR must confront the massive reskilling agenda, which Rupali is actually doing right now, so she can tell us about it. HR should also use digital to deliver a consumer-grade employee experience. This is the point I was making. Think Taj Hotels. Think Citibank. Think Hyatt. Think that when you're thinking about how to deliver experiences to your employees. And finally, I didn't have time to spend on this. Hopefully, Mishra ji, you will. Or Tanuja, maybe you could from DTT. This whole thing about how do you use analytics to drive people decisions. Because as HR people, I don't know how many HR people there are in the room. Can I get a show of hands? Quite a few. How often have you heard this thing about, oh, we need to become strategic business partners? How long have you been hearing this?
Even the students here.
We want to become strategic business partners. It's like waiting for Godot. It's not happened for the last 20 years. We are still waiting to become strategic business partners. And it'll go on for another 15, 20 years, unless we start speaking the language of the business. And the language of the business is spoken in terms of data, is spoken in terms of numbers, and it is spoken in terms of the type of work. So if HR really wants to make a difference to the organization, they better start understanding how work happens, and they better start using data and analytics to do their work. Okay? That's all for now. I'll hand off to my colleagues. Who's going next? You going? Okay. You need this, right? Or do you want to speak from there?
Yeah, I can take this one also. So thank you, Himanshu. And Himanshu had started with a very good note on why it is important and how HR has a role to play in this journey. But let me first tell you that this automation, AI, digital, machine learning and all these things are new, not new things. I remember 25 years back when I was studying in IIT, we studied about robotics, we designed and we have done projects around robotics. Then I went to Tata Motors where we have used a lot of automation, artificial intelligence in the assembly lines. Recently I visited again Tata Motors, my first company, and in one of the assembly line where there used to be 150 workers, now only there are some 6-7 workers. And the assembly line is air conditioned. I thought only the offices, IT companies where you see air conditioned thing. Now the assembly line is completely air conditioned. And the robotics is doing the things, and there is AI, in the AI kind of concepts are used, to take the decisions in the assembly line. So this is not new. Then why such a buzz now? Why everybody is talking about seminars are happening around AI, digital? It's because of the availability of very modern storage, data, access to data, wonderful networks. Now the 4G, 5G are coming, and availability of very modern end-user computing devices, mobile devices, wonderful computing devices are available now. So the AI and automation and digital has come to even the retail industry just spoke about, to the service industry, to the IT industry, to the common human life for citizen services. Like now in Government of India also, if you go for a passport, now the message is coming to you, your passport has been processed, please come and collect. So everywhere we are seeing the AI and digital and automation is playing a role. So that is why HR definitely has got a role to play, not just in one type of companies, but in every company, in every industry, every corporate, or wherever you go and work. Even in government entities also, you have a role to play to transform the workforce, to align to this new disruptive change that has happened, and it has a lot of disruption happened before. I am seeing for last 25 years, but this disruption the scale is very high, and it is affecting every person, every business in somewhere or other. So that is why HR has got a very good role to play, because at the end of the day, we are the masters. He told very nicely, the professor, your vice chancellor told very nicely that it's not that they are going to replace us. The AI or chatbot and all these things what we are talking about, it is not going to replace us, but it will redefine our work. When it will redefine, instead of in old days, when we joined IT industry, somebody told that you were a software engineer. Maybe today you will become an automation engineer. You were a software consultant, you will become a digital consultant. So the type of work will change, your roles and responsibility will change, and for that, I think Rupali will talk about it, that what kind of transformation is required around learning, engaging the employees, and make them ready and prepared for this change that is happening around us. 2 years back, when I inaugurated the automation center of excellence and AI ML center of excellence in our company, around large conference room, some thousands of very senior leaders from my company were there, and I told two things, that if we have to succeed in this race, if we have to win in this change, then two things we have to do. First is, since that event was in Hyderabad, I told Hyderabadis are very familiar with a word called compulsory. Whenever you go somewhere, there is a road ends, you tell that, do I have to take this road now? Compulsory, sir. You have to take this road only. So I told that, since you guys know this word compulsory, let me tell you, automation and digital is compulsory. It's not an optional subject now. It's a compulsory subject, right? So then my support organizations, the HR, the legal, the finance, everybody has to be prepared for this compulsory subject, because compulsory subject has a significance that if you fail in the exam, right? That is the number one. The second thing is that no employee is left behind. It's not a game where you will tell that 20% of the people I will transform, then I'm good. Or 40% of the people I will transfer, I'm good. The entire population has to be transferred in your company. No employee is left behind. And that is where the HR has got a role to play, that how you transform the entire workforce. Now, I will touch upon another subject, because I know the workforce transformation and talent transformation in the organization, the people who are heading the learning organization, Sunaina is sitting there, she also knows that this is very, very important, and we do several initiatives, certifications, learning programs and what not, different ways through gamification and all. We make the entire population of your company align and transform to the new technologies and new way of doing things. But let me tell you some other things, is that if you look at the entire human resources life cycle of a company, it starts with talent acquisition. You bring talent into the company. Then it comes how you then engage the talent, right? Workforce management, your onboarding. Then comes the learning and development, reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling. Then you have got performance management, right? You have to manage the rewards, recognitions, succession planning, career planning. So there are a facet of things that you do as a HR partner. He was telling that always HR team tries to become the strategic business partner. So I'm telling how the HR can become a strategic business partner, because I come from business, right? So when I look at HR, it is not one facet alone, skill transformation or talent transfer. I look at the entire 9 yards. As a partner, you have to take care of starting from the talent acquisition to the talent management, performance management, career planning, learning and development, the entire thing you have to do for the business. Why I'm bringing this thing, that in each of the areas, I can speak for hours, but I know that we have got only 10 minutes. So in each of the areas, digital and AI has a role to play and has already started playing a role. When it talks to talent acquisitions, you can have AI-based. People tell that 52% of all the people who are into talent acquisition, they tell that, boss, 80% of our time goes in finding the right fitment. Jack Welch, the GE CEO, once told that if you find the right talent while you are designing your organization construct, when you are putting the things in various places, who will be my manager, who will be my leader, who will be doing the architecting. If you find the right talent, you have won 50% of the battle. 50% of the battle is won if you got the right talent. And think about, in this country, if you are trying to find out, let's say 1.2 billion people in this country, there are so many people, so many talents are available, right? And again, if you talk about large companies like TCS or Infosys or Tech Mahindra, we are a 105,000 people company. So if you are trying to find out talent internally or externally, it is a huge work, and as he rightly told, it's not that AI or digital will change your job. You will still become the talent manager. You will still remain as the recruitment manager, but you can use these AI tools, the bots, you can create those algorithms and machine learning solutions to enhance your productivity and effectiveness in identifying the right talent for a position. That is where, so there are two reasons why we are encouraging our HR partners that you use digital and AI and ML in each of these places. In skilling also, you can use AI, ML. We have recently, when engaging your employees, because when employees are coming, they will have hundreds of questions. In the middle of the night, if for some reason, God forbid, I need to admit some near and dear of my family into the hospital, I know that I have got insurance. But then I cannot call my HR guy in the middle of the night and tell him he must be sleeping or she must be sleeping that time. Do I have a bot? And that is there installed in my fancy device called mobile phone, where I can go and talk to the bot that tell that what kind of, who is our third party administrator, which is the nearest the hospital where I can take the patient, what I have to do, how I can use the cashless facility. And is it rocket science? It's not. Today, hundreds of bots are working, and I'll tell you one thing, if you are going to become the HR specialist, that tomorrow we have got a position called application support. Now the position is called bot support. Because since hundreds of bots are there, there is a position now in our IT industry called bot support engineer, bot analyst. Right? But those are the things, small interventions you can do as HR partner for the business, and see how you can enhance the experience of your employees, your stakeholders in the company. And I'm coming back to the first thing he told, what is the purpose of this thing? Purpose of AI ML, purpose of digital, purpose of automation is not to replace human beings. Because at the end of the day, there will be a thing that is to be done by the human beings, the empathy, the decision making. See, all those things has to be done by the human. It's not to replace. For two reasons, you have to bring AI ML to your business and to your HR operations and for your workforce. Number one, it will improve the productivity. As a HR person also, your productivity will improve if you bring AI ML into your operations of the all 9 years of talent that you are responsible for. And the second thing is that what he told so nicely, Himanshu told, it will improve the experience. Your stakeholders' experience, your employee experience, your customer experience, your partner's experience. So improving the experience and improving the productivity are the sole purpose for which I recommend to all our HR people, the HR fraternity, to use AI ML, to use digital in all the 9 years of talent management and become the strategic partner for the business. Thank you so much.
We'll just get it done. Yeah. You want? Yeah. Yeah. This is fine, I guess. Can you just speak once?
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. You good? Thank you. That's okay. Hold.
You hold it?
Yeah. And I'll just need the change.
If you want to move this back.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll just say. Ready? Thank you. Right? Yeah. All right. So for the speakers who came before me, I was doing a little bit of AI for myself, and I saw how many times my name came up, and I was a little concerned about. I was like, can I answer all those questions that the speakers before me so nicely talked about? And do I have all that information for all of you? So I hope I do the 10 minutes that I've got justice. But very, very happy to be here. Very nice energy in the room, and it was so good to see. I was actually, when the VC was talking about the teacher to student ratio, it's better than Harvard, guys. So you've got a 1:4. That's amazing. So that's really, really cool. It's of great interest to me, specifically from the learning and development space, to specifically talk about that space for this particular segment. And then as we open it up for the panel discussion, maybe we'll talk about wider subjects. But I wanted to touch on learning and development specifically within HR, to see what's going on out there in the market right now, and what are organizations doing. So I'm going to be sharing as much as I can of a lot of the information that a lot of these organizations are doing are proprietary. So I will not be able to share too much in detail for some of this stuff, but I would want to give you a flavor of what's happening out there in the market. Particularly in the pharma space, there's already digital medicine. So you really pop a pill that actually gives you the results of your pulse and the readings and stuff like that. There are actually triggered medicine that people are consuming now that go to that particular cell and kill that particular cancer cell, for instance. So there's very targeted medicine happening because of AI and digital and tech advances that's going on right now. But how does that then apply to learning? And Himanshu very well, I think, talked about the role of HR and then specifically the role of learning then within HR. How do we then deal with associates who need to learn about what's going on with pharma and with tech in pharma? So what does this remind you of? Gurukul, right? We come from India, so Gurukul, the ancient system of learning. Sorry? That's the ratio. That's actually the Nalsa ratio. But the Gurukul system, right? What was that typically like? What was the Gurukul system made of? Focused intervention. So there was focus, of course, because the Nalsa ratio, it has to be focused. But what else? Who was the knowledge? Who had the knowledge? The guru, right? And what was the student's role in it? Where's the voices, guys? Were you there at tea break? Getting the knowledge, right? So really the role of the students there in the Gurukul was that of a recipient, right? How does learning happen today? Does it look like this? Does it look like this? Right? It's informal, it's between friends, it's happening online. Somebody from Turkey or Uzbekistan could have taught you something that you'd never known before. It's happening on your phones and laptops and iPads, right? Where's the guru? Everywhere, isn't it? There's pure learning going on, right? This is what our parents could look like maybe a little bit with what's going on right now with technology. A little bit, isn't it? But what's going on with our children? Right? The technology really has has entered our classrooms, and from a very, very early stage, at a very nascent stage. So if you were to talk to young parents today, what do you basically hear them saying? Apne aap screen khol diya, apne aap number dial kar diya, all that. They're amazed at their kids working with this technology, right? But it's as good as the air they breathe. It's not new to them, right? And all of us sitting here, most of us are millennials here, right? The average age must be 25, 26 in this room, yeah? So for all of us, we are somewhere in the middle of this whole transformation exercise. So we can see our parents struggling with it. We are a little bit more comfortable than them, but we're not as comfortable as what our kids may be with this. You're not getting an angle? You need me to move? So we're not as comfortable as our kids with it. This is what was really cool in the 80s as a game. Does anybody know this? Pac-Man, of course. This is damn cool, okay? So people were like, oh my God, I get to eat a dot. And that was the fastest that people were going, and this was excitement. So this was a smiley face that had to eat some dots, and that was the coolest thing happening in the 80s, okay? This is what your life looks like every day today, isn't it? Right? You're on LinkedIn, social platforms, you're constantly engaged, you're on WhatsApp, you're talking to, again, strangers. Again, I think we've spoken about this before. This is what phone companies are offering to you at a very, very comfortable price, right? VR is right there. And this is happening in your personal lives. Pokemon Go. A lot of us have, you know, been on the verge of jumping into some ditch or something, right? Looking for a Pokemon. But that's where people are actually, that's where AI, digital, machine, that's where it's becoming more and more real, less virtual, yeah? This is what toys for kids look like today. Of course, navigation, and Uber is a good example of that. These are the kind of games that we like to play, which are more around thinking and which are more sort of mind-based. There are personal dating apps, right? They're matching profiles and recommending people to you in your area that you could date. And it's all AI. They're actually gathering your data and throwing up information that's more tailored to you, yeah? Big data, of course, and blockchain that everybody is talking about. They're humanoids, and we talked about those two, and Himanshu actually talked about examples of humanoids in the assembly line sort of chain. So all of this is not tomorrow. This is happening now. This is out there in the industry. So really the question for us at Novartis is, what does it mean for Novartis? The industry by itself is going a certain direction, and I also spoke about what's going on in the pharma space. There is tech-enabled medicine that's going on right now. So what does it mean, and how does this apply to Novartis, and specifically in HR and learning, what does it mean for us? So I just thought I'd talk to you about a couple of examples that we've already applied at work. I'll be able to talk about some of them at the surface level because it's proprietary information to the organization, but just for a taste. We utilize spaced repetition. This was for the field force in the organization. As you may know, most of the retail field force is very spread out in the organization. So you might have 150 people spread across 33 locations, especially in a geography like India, that's geographically very, very diverse. But what this means for us is that all our field force across globally, and there's 120,000 of us globally at Novartis, in order to increase retention of information, and also because of regulations, a lot of our drug and manufacturing and information around the drugs is changing very, very quickly. So the speed of that is also changing very quickly. What we were observing was that retention of information around these drugs was not very high with field associates. So what we did was to address the forgetting curve that associates have every time that you learn something new. We leveraged spaced repetition and gamification to actually push information out to field associates so that they could memorize the same stuff that they were not doing that well on. So it was a very personalized sort of information push that was happening for each individual on this platform, through which they could then memorize the stuff that they were struggling with. There were also coaching inserts that were going into the managers of these associates saying, your associate may be struggling with this particular subject, so please coach them. So on the right, what you see, help Richard with competitor knowledge and awareness. So that's the kind of triggers that the managers were getting to say, that's the subject that your associate is struggling with, please help them with that, right? What was the result of this exercise? We collected 800,000 data points over a period of a couple of months, and we saw that the retention went up by about 16%, and the overall engagement with this platform was about 90%, which is very, very high. And that's also because it was personalized and it was competitive. So people really got interested and got onto the platform. Another example that we have here is for onboarding. So our headquarters are in Basel, and for all the European locations, you might have people being hired in Dublin and Prague and other European locations, but it's not possible for us to call everybody to Basel every time. So in order to subvert that cost and also make sure that there was a retained sort of engagement with different people in different sites, we actually made a virtual world. So how many of you have heard of this virtual game called Second Life? Yeah? All millennials, so maybe not. So Second Life was actually a virtual reality game where you could enter and you could lead a second life. So you could do anything there. You could just build a business, you could open a shop. So exactly what you do in your natural life, you could do on that platform. So what we call World in Novartis is pretty much like that. You can actually take a virtual tour, which is as good as the real location. There are bots that actually take you through the different, there are avatars inside it that walk you through the entire location, show you the different buildings in our headquarters, and show you what actually happens there. You can register for different virtual classes and sit, and the classroom experience is literally like sitting in a classroom. So what you see at the base here, to the left, is where you can actually sit in a classroom with somebody across different locations. Sorry, Swati, am I blocking your view? And you can actually walk across in the entire location and sit with them in a class and go to different areas. What this also allowed for is that people could actually go back to the information that they wanted over and over again. So it's not like that they got one tour and one understanding. So for instance, our drug discovery process or the laboratory, that's a little complex to understand. But somebody could actually, at their own pace and sitting in the location that they were in, they could actually go and revisit that information as many times as they'd like. So it actually saved us time. It built engagement. You found yourself sitting virtually, of course, in a class with somebody from another location and said, hey, hello, where are you from, etc. So you could actually do that, pretty much like how you're sitting in a physical classroom, only that it's happening virtually. And then you connect beyond that. This is also very interesting. This is something we've recently piloted, and very excited about this. So we've piloted virtual reality for manufacturing training. So essentially, we're trying to see there are complex machines in the laboratories, and each of those needs maintenance. So people who would actually have to do that maintenance, to train them on how to do it, you would have to shut down the entire system for them to learn it. But if you do it through VR, you can actually physically, it's the experience. If you see on the bottom left corner, the photo and the VR screen it's as good as being in the real room. So the physical experience that somebody has of this is that they're actually in that room. And we've had situations where people have actually in the VR room, they've thought it's a wall and they've tried to bend over it. They've thought that they'll take a little rest on it, they fell. So this is very good for, if you have to go to location, if you have to get inside a machine and see what's inside, if you have to get under it and see what's under it. So you get like multiple sort of views to that machine. So this is something very exciting. This also Himanshu touched on, and we've utilized virtual reality for sales training. Again, this is for associates who are spread across different locations. If you don't want to take a fresh associate into a doctor's chamber, you can actually give them the experience of it on VR. So we've actually made videos where they can which they can access on their mobile phones and on their iPads, and they can take a virtual tour. So they can literally hook that on their gogs, and they can take a virtual tour of what happens in a doctor's chamber. And then you can actually teach them what's on the screens, how do you put the sample there, if you go to, for the different locations in the doctor's chamber, where do you place your product, etc. So the bit that I was saying, that how many times is my name coming up, that's something that we are trying to do now with our content. So what we are trying to do is match the right content to the right associate. And when you're looking for, and we talked about, it's the age of information curation versus information creation, right? So we're really trying to see, we have a lot of material, but can we sift through that material to bring you the most relevant piece of information that you would like, real time. So we're doing a lot of mapping of existing content to the requirement that our associates may have in real time. That is also helping us write our course descriptions, and it's helping us make very, very customized learning content for our associates. There's also social learning that we've utilized a whole lot. So Fuse is a platform which is pretty much like Facebook, but it also has a backend like SharePoint that you can use for maintaining information. So you can actually go up there and share information. If you found something from open source, you can put it up there. You can have discussions, so that allows for social learning. We have a series called NovaTale, which is experiences, pretty much like how we are sharing experiences right now. So experiences that senior leaders or subject matter experts in the organization are sharing with the rest of the organization. Essentially just needs a mobile phone on a tripod, and we create these 5-minute videos, and these stories are shared out, and again you can shoot them out to the rest of the world. So one person shoots it and it goes out to 120,000 associates across. There's also EPSS, which is again specific information as and when you may need it. So as you go into that particular tool or app, or even maybe like a laboratory instrument, that's when that information pops up onto your mobile phone, because it reads that you're in that particular location. There's also exploration of augmented reality. So if you actually go to a particular laboratory machine, versus you actually having to read a manual. And earlier, the evaluation of your prowess as an associate was how much can you remember. Now, that information will augment itself there on that machine, saying this is the process, this is what this machine is about, that's it. Again, it's real time, you don't need to remember all that stuff. It becomes easily accessible to you. So I think we're done on time. So just a quick snapshot of what learning looks like in most of these organizations now. The basket looks something like this. It's not just classroom, it's not just virtual, it's not just, this is all that you can choose from. So this is the current Novartis Performance Toolkit, and it's like a basket of different things. And every time that we have to make a solution, it's really a mix and match of all of these. So thank you very much, everybody, for your time. This is all we had time for, but we'll open it up for panel later. Thank you.
All the stuff that they're doing.
So
It's wonderful.
Lock the door, there is a girl waiting in the room.
It's Tanuja. Over to you.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just. Can you just speak once?
Yes, I can speak once, and I can speak twice. Are we on?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So before I start, I was kind of scribbling down notes on what the 3 panelists have spoken. I had a 1-hour journey coming in, and once I reached, I actually was wowing myself at looking at the campus which you have. So I actually was very ignorant about the campus, so I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I just loved it. Yes, let it go, and that was my second request. I am the last speaker. I need some energy. I don't want, she is coming back. I'm going to hold it till she comes back. No, I was just kidding. So I need some claps, please, before we go forward. And it has to be like really loud. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. So she should know what she's missing. Thank you very much. This is basically, I will try wrap up in 15 minutes. Somebody can stop me if I don't. And these claps were for you, okay? As much as for me, it was for you, for being here at this point in time, to be able to sit down, take out time and say, hey, there is something happening in the world. I'm going to just take a back seat and think about how I'm going to react to what's happening in the world. Yeah? So it's a sweet spot to be in because we are running so much. There is a conscious mind and a subconscious mind which is actually thinking, khane mein kya milega, kab ghar jaunga, all that is happening on the back, but you are here. So my request is just be fully present, shut down your subconscious mind and be with me for next 15 minutes. And I have a very different take than the three panelists here. So they can kind of kill me later saying, no, what you make sense or you don't make sense. But I will just take a shot at it, okay? Now, how many of you understand Hindi here? Comfortable? Ma behan? All good? Okay, all right. How many of you feel AI, machine learning, technology is going to take away my job? मेरे को कल job मिलेगी नहीं मिलेगी किसी को डर है? किसी को नहीं है तो मेरे बात करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है actually. We are done with it here. It's all gyan what we are talking about. I don't think any of us is worried in this room today thinking machine is going to take away my job. Are we cool? Yeah? So that's not what we are talking about. We are not talking about, is things are going to change, campus placement will happen, will I have a job? No, so we are beyond that conversation. Yes? Now what I am going to talk about is machines are an enabler to what we are doing. It's not replacing me, it's going to help me do my job well. That's all it is all about. Yeah? I'll take my life back 20 years ago. Don't judge my age right now. Stay on the conscious mind, okay? You can do that deduction later, okay? I was working in a factory in Rajahmundry, okay? And there was this time office. Manufacturing, you have a time office, card punch karna hota hai, and then you go. So there are workers who would go past through that gate. Now, I was obviously an HR person working in the factory. I would know how many people came in without looking at the punch. If I were to just call the time office and say, Ramu aaya, Shyamu aaya, Somu aaya hai, that guy had a connect with every damn person who is punching in and going. Oh, Somu aaj 5 minutes late tha. Without looking at the punch card, that time machine guy knew. How? He had a relationship with everybody. Uski बीवी बीमार है, उसके बच्चे की तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, उसका ऑपरेशन हुआ है. Every goddamn it information was available with the time manager, without laptops, without typewriters, without nothing. And we are talking about a sizable information. Okay? That's a human mind which was doing that connect and stuff like that. That's one example where we were not doing things with machine, we were doing things with people, human minds. Yeah? Fast forward maybe 8 years later, I was told I should do a course on typewriting. Huh? Us time par ye skill hota tha. Anybody has seen your sisters or chachas, chachis or anybody, you are millennials, so I'll go there. Typewriter ke wo hote the, institute, typing institute. Have you heard of them? Huh? Speed, typing speed. Okay. Then what happened later on? Have you seen a typewriter in last 20 years? दिखता कैसे है पता है? Okay, वो ऐसे move करना पड़ता है, all those stuff. Yeah. So that was replaced by what? Yeah. But उस time पर railway ticket कैसे होते थे? Line में जाके खड़े होकर के. We used to do that, right? And then later on, a lot of people felt in railway our jobs will be lost. Have they lost their jobs? Not really. So that's not the paradigm that we were going to talk about. Now take another example, and I will tell you this from my previous job with NTT, where there is one guy who came for an interview, and he's coming from one of the big daddies like a Infosys Wipro type, and his reason for change. Okay, he's sitting there and he says, I went through an exit interview, and the exit interview was on a machine. आप क्यों छोड़ के जा रहे हैं? मुझे कंपनी पसंद नहीं है. I don't like the company, I don't like the manager. Nobody cares a damn what he's written. There is no person sitting on the other side. It's an automated system. It's a screen he has to fulfill, and it's a check mark for HR saying, you have done exit interview, ho gaya, ab jao. Okay? Has somebody looked into my eyes and really felt the pain I was going through? I was not wanting to go, but I had difficulty with my manager. Has somebody spoken to me? So I don't know who my HR is. That's the state of affairs which happened. Look at this time office experience and this exit interview experience. The two paradigms that we are talking about. HR plays a role somewhere in between. So there is a very beautiful thing we say in HR. It's called high tech versus high touch. Yeah, high tech versus high touch. Now, I could go extreme on one side and leave the human element, or I could go the other way around where everything is automated and there's no human element. None of those are true. So we could do all we are doing, whatever we have just said, the learning part, which can get automated, or we could talk about, lot of decisions which are done on analytics and stuff like that, but you cannot take the gut. Yeah, we all work with our gut. We cannot take the emotions away. Yeah, I'll give you another example. We typically have these big, large organizations. When one is relocating from one location to the other, you need to fill a form, and your HR will come into picture or admin will come into picture, and they start doing this. घर कितना मिलेगा, तुम्हारा entitlement कितना है, कौन से दिन travel करोगे, all that shit which happens, right, the administrative part. So he has done all of that, and then I'm sitting on the next block, and he would come and say, Tanuja, I filled the form, now, when is it going to come? I'm like, automated system, it'll work. So he comes the next day, he's got same set of questions. Yeah, he's moving from Delhi to Bangalore. And the third day, and I have my neighbor sitting, and I'm like, why are you entertaining this guy? He comes every day and talks to you and asking the same set of questions. The problem was not with the form. The problem was not with the ticket or his relocation of luggage. The problem was with the anxiety that he was going through. Is this relocation going to work for me or not? He needed a human being to talk to and comfort him, and which is where we miss the point and say, form hai, bharo, aur wahan chale jao. There is no HR in the whole process, which is where we are not engaging our workforce. Yeah, you can use engaging, and the other very beautiful word Himanshu used was the experience. Yeah, so it's all about experience that you are creating for the employees. And another very beautiful example you have seen is Tirupati digital darshanam. Have you seen? Or any other god you want to visit? Have any one of you visited that? No, maybe you're not religious. Your parents, grandparents? No? Have you heard of it? You can do online, laddu chadane ke liye 100 rupiya, darshan, closed by darshan ke liye 200 rupiya, all that stuff. Yeah? But people still go to Tirupati. Has it reduced the crowd because there is a digital darshan? It continues to be what it is. It is not replacing the emotion of me going that place and then feel the place. Yes? So that's not changing. And the last example which I want to perhaps share is, we just spoke about virtual, going to Basel office virtually. There is a cost constraint, and then you can't physically travel to that location. Yeah? I have a question, and I want a raise of hands and tell me. So we are planning a trip to Goa. Okay? How many of you would like to do a virtual trip, and how many would like to go a physical? Raise the hand and tell me, would you rather do a inexperience? How many of you would go there? Just raise your hand. All of us, right? So what is it all telling us? Living it, doing it, yeah? So we are human beings. We are full of emotions. And I'll give you one very small example. I was sitting there and I was kind of checking my phone. I usually wouldn't do that. I have a 13-year-old bothering me like hell on the phone continuously. Okay, when are you coming? When are you coming? When are you coming? It's a Saturday and he wants to do rest of the things with me. And what is happening on the other side there? He is connected with his laptop. He's got his phone. And he's got every gadget you can imagine. He's got all of this. He's there with all of it, but he still wants a mom to come to do things with him. Yeah? So a 13-year-old where we say a millennial is more digitally connected, he don't care, blah, 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 all whatever is said about you, you are connected at the end of the day. That emotion of me physically being with my kid is not going to change, and his emotion to be with me is not going to change. Yeah? we are driven, what differentiates us from the robots or the machines is our emotions. Yeah? You have to use all these facilities which are available to be better, smarter, and more impactful at what you're doing. But I do not believe, one, it is changing the way we should be approaching our workplaces. Yeah? And two is, it's not going to be overpowering that, you know, tomorrow world is just going to be virtual. I don't believe so. Yeah? On that note, I will take a stop. Okay?
So Tanuja, thank you very much, because that's a powerful reminder of the other side. Yeah, it's not this or that. It is this and that. And that's why I like the word augmentation, because I think technology can augment your brain, it can augment your brawn, it can augment your heart. But if it's used in the right way, if it's overused, it can probably have a negative effect, exactly the way Tanuja was saying. So we are at 1. We are supposed to have finished at this time. But I think it would do injustice to all of you if you don't at least throw open the floor for a little bit. So maybe 10 minutes. I hope we don't mind stealing 10 minutes from your lunch. But if there are any questions that you folks have for any of us or one of us, feel free. So you need a mic, right? Yeah. Why don't you take this?
So, taking off from where Tanuja left off, it's here to stay, all this use of gadgets and information and data and all that. How does one integrate this personal touch along? You cannot avoid the technology. Mm-hmm. How do you ensure this integration?
Yeah. I mean, I use the word experience. I think experience is what binds everything together. If you think experience and you use technology to augment the experience, you will have used it in the right proportion. But if you use it in its absoluteness without thinking of the end-to-end experience, you might take it too far. Now, that's in the context of a company. In the context of individuals, I think we have to find our own balance. And I'm sure the others will share their lessons. I have my lessons of how I use technology and don't allow it to go overboard, but any of you would like to add to that?
There's a lot of youngsters in the working force, and when they, okay, your experience and age levels are different, and they interact with a lot of other young HR who are very comfortable on mails and telephones and, you know, with technology in between the front-facing aspect. Now, you may still think in terms of personal interface. How does that filter down to the organization? I mean, how do you tell your younger HR to stop using technology to such an extent, that is?
I don't think that you have to limit anybody in this world today, that you reduce the usage of technology, because technology usage will continue to increase now. But I completely agree, and I also told in my opening remarks that it is for two purposes. One is to improve productivity. The second is to create a better experience. So the instances where empathy and emotion is to play, that is where human intervention is required. For example, exit interview. I completely agree with you that exit interview shouldn't be done by a bot, right? Or when you are bringing somebody, you are welcoming somebody, you should not welcome by a bot. There has to be a human being who should be involved when you welcome somebody to your family, to your professional family, because it is home away from home. But let's say there is a claim processing, there is a repetitive work, there is some, kind of a day-to-day payroll-related question or something. Those kind of things can be done by, actually, if you get it done by human being, it is, the experience is not that great, because he will take a lot of time, go to somebody else, do a lot of computation and all this, come up to 3 days. But the response time is dramatically improved if you are using digital and automation there. So always the intent, this is the answer, that your objective is to improve the experience. Now you decide whether the experience will be improved by human intervention or a digital intervention.
Or a combination.
Or a combination.
I have two stories, and I will try make it like 1 minute story each, okay? I had a team member, all of 25, 30 years age. To me, he is not driven by SLAs. He's not somebody, he's a HR business partner role. He's a happy-go-lucky guy, and if I were to rate, he's not the top guy I would like to retain. And I've had multiple sessions, and I'm telling this guy, you know, it's not working out, your performance has to be improved. And then I talked to the people he was supporting. And here is the feedback which stayed with me. They said, he's the best HR person you have. And you know why? He would spend enormous amount of time listening to people's problem. He is not cutting them short and saying, "Aadha ghanta ka aapko meeting hai, baat hogi," because the emotion cannot be felt and told in a 30-minute or a 20-minute. He would give as much time to understand the problem rather than going to the solution. And half of the problem was solved when he was listening. And it was a revelation for me because I was so driven by the clock and I'm saying this has to happen. It's like the left mind versus right mind connection. So you have to have the right mind, which is the analytics, the data and the numbers, and there is a left side of the brain which is the soft touch and feel. So I don't think we need to teach the youngsters. Yes, please. That's my son, I know that. You can just take the phone there. So I don't think they need to be taught that which one to use, where they're extremely smart. Okay? It's just that if it works for a Y generation or a millennial at that point in time to use a tool, they will figure it out. Okay? Or if they feel that there has to be a touch where there has to be a meeting like this, if this was to be a virtual conference, I think these guys are very smart to say, we will do a virtual conference. And if they feel that, you know, it has to be a physical conference, they will figure it out. So we don't have to really boil the ocean and say, you know, we need to teach something to them. They're much smarter than what we can imagine.
Great.
And another one line, there is an experiment which is happening in Dubai where they are trying to replace the nurses with robots. The nurse cannot understand the pain. The robot cannot understand the pain, the nurse understands. So what she was able to do, the comfort part, the robot can't. So they have done it like degree of pain kind of increased. Is the robot able to react or do something about it? It wasn't working. So it could be a disaster in some situations, it could be working beautifully, but it's for us. Human beings are smarter than robots. We need to figure out where we want to use what we want to use. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, sorry, speak, yeah.
Yeah, you spoke about reasoning. I don't know whether it makes sense to, make a point here. Most of the time, we listen to reply. We don't listen to understand. So if we listen to understand, what Mr. Himanshu spoke about the experience. That will be, it will enhance the employee experience. We should always listen to understand, not to reply. Most of the times, we listen to reply.
I think we have time for one more question, and maybe we should take it from one of the students.
Yeah.
Sir, I have a question in fact.
Which where is this?
This side, this side.
This side.
Yeah. So, ma'am, one concurrence and one question. So, the human part you've touched upon is very much apt. If at all you could remember the movie Up in the Air by George Clooney, where the people fired a council for better jobs. Up in the Air by, yes ma'am, it's a very good movie which supports a concept. So that is one concurrence, and many thanks for raising that. And second one is all about, the replacement part. So I have a contention with respect to what you've said, ma'am. If you could remember the first law of thermodynamics, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but transferred from one form to another form. So here, jobs are not being taken off, jobs are to stay. But the problem is, they are being taken away by one sect to other sect. So that is a catch. So the other sect which are losing jobs, right, that there lies a difficulty. Because technocrats are replacing the skilled, not skilled, in fact, semi-skilled and unskilled people. So that is where the fears of automations lie in. So what's your take on this?
So I was giving you an example of what happened with the typewriter. Those skills are passé. Nobody goes to a typewriter institute. That was the skill needed in the year 2000. Okay? So with this change, human mind has to work, or HR has to work at a different level. What I was doing 5 years back and I thought I can survive will not work. So the next session which you have in the afternoon is talking about how are you going to upgrade your skill, what is it that you need to learn. It is not about new technology. Technologies will keep coming and going. The way, yesterday there was no virtual reality, it's coming in today, right? BOT was not there 5 years back. So it's not about technology. How am I adapting to the new way of life? That's what it's all about.
Okay.
Let's take one. You want to? Okay. Yeah, sure.
That what you told is absolutely right. That some of those jobs will certainly reduce and eliminate. I'm seeing this thing because there is a work with all IT companies we do, and mostly from India. You will be very interested to know that application support, we call it. Infrastructure support, application support. We support the applications and servers, desktops and all those things for many, many different multinational companies across the world. And that was used to be 30 to 40% of our work. Today, the work for which 5 years back we used to have 100 people, for this same work, today we have got only 30 people. 30 people. That means 70 jobs are gone. But look at the bank revolution. The tellers, when my father was going and putting the hand inside and thappa, 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 the guy will do, those job is gone. But now there is new kind of jobs called wealth manager, relationship manager. You know, banks have got relationship manager if you have got high net customer, high wealth customer. So, as you rightly told, the jobs will change, and that is why skilling and talent transformation is important. We have to align to the new wave and have those skills. Instead of typewriter, we need the computer skills to remain relevant, right? So that is what is required.
Sorry, I'm going to have to request a gentleman from the back to.
I have one simple doubt that now, as people are saying that humans still need like human touch and human emotions play a key role. But for example, now when I'm an employee, I'm a student right now, and my teacher or my boss says that you're a good performer. What is a good performer?
And he feels like having a cool drink. There is no cool drink. So he says, how about me putting a pan buddy? Okay, I can sell pan, I can sell sutta, and I can sell cool drinks there. So he puts a small pan buddy few miles away from the church. And then he goes further and he says, yahan pe bhi nahi hai, yahan pe bhi nahi hai, yahan pe bhi nahi hai. So he starts to look for an opportunity and starts making these small pan buddies wherever he sees there is a possibility to sell chai sutta. That's just small stalls. And suddenly he becomes big. He's 20 years old now, and he's got these chain of pan buddies happening across the country, and he's flourishing. Now he says, you know what? I will go and I will start my own sutta brand because I'm big now. Why should I sell somebody else's brand? So he goes to the bank. And then he's sitting, and then the banker is very happy. Sir, please come. We will be happy to give you a loan. All you need to do is just sign in these places, and then we'll give the loan. He says, if I can't sign, for God. Okay? If I was signing, I would be ringing the church bell 20 years back. Yeah? So, what is the essence of the story? You don't need a goddammit education. You don't need nothing to succeed. You need to have an opportunity, and you need to keep yourself thinking, how am I going to make myself? The jugaad, the typical that we are famous for. You need to have those skills. It could be HR, engineering, it really doesn't matter. And my last take, which I feel, they've made a big Hawa out of the whole thing. You understand Hawa? How many of you understand? No. 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 So, yes. Cosmos. So that's why I was asking how many of you are, so Google up, how many you want to Google up and see what's a goddamn it Hawa means. It is a Hawa which we have created, and you have created a conference out of a Hawa. But it is a problem we are dealing with, but relax, nothing is changing. You're all in a very beautiful place.
I think on that note,
I would call upon Professor Pinaki, our very own Center Head of CMS Nalsar, to give vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Hashmita, and I cannot say how indebted I am to Himanshu and Mishra ji, Rupali and Tanuja for sharing brilliant stories and real-life experiences. On the Saudi Arabian scenario, I would just want to add a couple of things, and you can actually do the Google further on. So there's this bot called Sophia. Must read about it. Like she's definitely worth reading. Sophia's a bot who's the first bot citizen who's registered in Saudi Arabia of all places, and works on something called Singularity Net. It's a blockchain-based marketplace which integrates understanding, innate knowledge of bots, and allows them to make themselves self-aware and capable. It's an amazing technology. Please read about that. She also goes around attending news shows, Jerry Maguire Live and stuff like that, and wants to have a family on her own. Responds to questions on her own without coding. So if you ask her, what is your name, Sophia? Would you want to marry me? She might just tell you, well, I'm not keen right now. And stuff like that. The AI industry for real is supposed to grow from about 234 billion to 3.1 trillion by 2025. I believe there is no competition between the organic and the artificial. There's only cooperation. We cooperate with the artificial, and this organic is going to grow better. Charles Darwin talked about evolution. Today's the world is about evolution. With that note, thank you very much for coming in, gracing us with your presence. Thank you very much for attending this. I have had this difficult task of keeping you from the lunch plates. And well, do keep in touch. We'll talk out.
I call upon Professor Vidyadhar Reddy to honor Mr. Himanshu Tambe with memento. I call upon Professor Pinaki to honor B.K. Mishra with memento. That's right behind you, sir. I would like to call Mr. Professor Shukla.
I want to really see if you acquired what happened in the first part, and you are using the high tech or the high touch, using your brain, and are you changing something now?
Yeah. That time also it was changed right after that, if you noticed.
Did you change or somebody? You did?
I did, ma'am, right there. Like honor upon. Yeah, Shukla sir. Oh, I'll just repeat it. Sorry. I call upon Mr. Professor Shukla to honor Tanuja Aburi with memento. I call upon Professor Swati to honor Rupali Dondial with memento.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. All right. There is one more exciting panel who will talk about essential skills for 2020. Immediately after, I leave you with some food for thought, and hope that as you have a quick bite, we share our food and get to know each other better. ponder upon the quick session gone by and know that the discussion on the other side of the break is going to be exhilarating. I would request to all of you to be back by 2 p.m. Thank you. Signing off, Hashmita Mundrao.
Guys, can I get a selfie with you guys? Anybody who's interested, come down. Yes, I'll take a selfie with all of you. Everybody here on the steps, I'll get a picture like that.